1 minute ago, a royal secret buried for centuries was brought into the light. Behind the altar of St. George's Chapel, hidden doors open to a vault of forbidden relics, confessions, lost heirlooms, even Diana's secret memorial. What was uncovered rewrites royal history, questions the crown's legacy, and exposes a depth of emotional betrayal no one saw coming. This isn't folklore, it's real. And once you hear what they found, you'll never look at the royal family the same again. A secret chamber behind the altar. The first discovery was entirely accidental. In April 2024, during a planned restoration at St. George's Chapel, Windsor, contractors working on stabilizing the stone near the eastern altar wall noticed irregular spacing between the limestone panels. At exactly 11:35 a.m. on the third day of restoration, a craftsman using a sensor scanner found an echoing hollow behind the wood-trimmed altar. What they initially assumed to be a structural flaw turned out to be the entrance to a narrow stone stairwell descending steeply beneath the floor. St. George's Chapel, built in the late 1400s, had never listed this passage in any public or royal archive, raising immediate suspicion. Palace archivists were contacted within 2 hours, and by 4 p.m., a security cordon had been erected around the chapel. A team of royal preservationists, led by Dr. Lawrence Fielding, entered the passage wearing protective gear and documented the first visuals. A spiral staircase carved directly into the bedrock, leading to a chamber estimated to be 15 feet below ground level. The air was dense, untouched for decades, possibly centuries. The chamber, roughly 12 feet wide and shaped like a teardrop, was walled with aging plaster, gold leaf accents, and one prominent iron cross embedded in the ceiling. The discovery triggered historical alarm. This wasn't a crypt or utility corridor. It was a deliberately hidden vault of royal secrets. Inside, the chamber housed a raised pedestal, atop which sat an object that would later ignite the world's attention. A gilded memorial cross bearing the initials DS and the engraved date 6th of September 1997, the exact day of Princess Diana's funeral. The artifact had never been seen before in public or private display. No such item had ever been catalogued by the Royal Collection Trust, and no member of the clergy recalled authorizing such a tribute. Its presence deep within an undisclosed chamber suggested it had been placed secretly, possibly without official permission. The craftsmanship was modern, at most 30 years old, and yet the room around it dated back centuries. Speculation erupted almost immediately. Who placed the cross? Why was it hidden? Some believe a member of the royal family or senior chapel staff added the cross in secret as an act of grief, perhaps even guilt, following Diana's sudden death in Paris. Others say it was an intentional statement, buried quietly beneath the religious heart of the monarchy to shield it from public view. What's certain is this: the emotional weight of the discovery and its implications about how the royal family handled Diana's legacy behind closed doors left every witness speechless. This wasn't just a tribute, it was a confession carved in gold. But the cross was only the beginning. As preservationists swept their torches across the chamber, one of them noticed something protruding from a crack in the stone near the pedestal's base. A small gold cylinder, sealed with a faded red ribbon. Inside lay a confession that hadn't seen daylight in over 80 years, bearing a royal seal that would shake the foundations of everything we thought we knew about Windsor history. What was written on that scroll would unravel secrets far beyond Princess Diana and pierce through layers of betrayal, legacy, and spiritual reckoning. A confession. Scroll, signed with a royal seal. As the team cleared more rubble near the pedestal, Dr. Lawrence Fielding noticed a crevice, revealing part of a gold-plated scroll case. It had been deliberately wedged into the wall, sealed with wax and bound with a faded red ribbon that bore the insignia of King Edward VIII, who abdicated the throne in 1936. The moment the scroll case was gently pried open at 2:47 p.m., a palpable tension filled the chamber. Inside was a parchment of extraordinary fragility, yet its words were bold, carefully penned in fountain ink. The scroll began, "To whom the crown may concern," and what followed was a first-person confession involving royal betrayal, hidden bloodlines, and a legacy tainted by guilt. Historians were stunned. The handwriting was verified by a signature specialist from Cambridge University, matching it conclusively to Edward VIII around the time of his exile in France. But the content was not about his abdication alone. It delved into events previously unknown to the public. The scroll referenced a second heir, born of silence, allegedly the result of an affair with a foreign noblewoman during the early 1930s. More startlingly, the document warned that what was hidden beneath Windsor would eventually rise in blood. The phrase, "beneath Windsor," is now being connected directly to the very chapel vault where the scroll was hidden. Perhaps the most disturbing detail was a reference to the Lady of the Lilies, who many now believe was a secret Catholic lover exiled from court records. The scroll hinted that the monarchy had suppressed multiple scandals not out of shame, but for preservation of public trust. Edward wrote that he had begged his successors to correct the ledger of truth, but the plea had gone unanswered. With trembling fingers, the researchers placed the scroll into preservation glass. But the truth was out. The royal line may have buried more than just its emotions. It may have buried alternate heirs to the throne. Special words: the Lady of the Lilies, ledger of truth, preservation glass, alternate heirs. This was no ceremonial document. It was a spiritual and political outcry from a king stripped of his crown, who feared more for the soul of the institution than for his title. The scroll ended with a chilling benediction. If redemption is not claimed, then the spirits will demand it themselves. This single line, written in 1937, echoes eerily when read in a vault that hadn't been touched in nearly a century. As news of the scroll reached Windsor advisors, orders were given to halt the restoration entirely. The chapel, now a living crime scene of history, had one more secret to show. Just when archivists believed the worst was behind them, a flicker of light danced across the stone wall near the confession scroll. It wasn't random. The light bounced off colored glass, revealing a long-concealed stained glass window that had been blacked out from both inside and outside. What it showed left even the most stoic historian in tears. It was an image not listed in any royal art catalog, one that mirrored a woman long associated with pain, transformation, and exile. And this woman wasn't from the distant past. She was Diana. Stained glass that was never meant to be seen. The stained glass window, estimated to have been installed between 1998 and 2000, was hidden behind a double layer of wooden panels and painted black from the chapel's exterior. At exactly 5:12 p.m., as the sun shifted through the western arches of the chapel, light illuminated a figure in the glass that bore an unmistakable resemblance to Princess Diana. She was depicted in a flowing white gown, barefoot, with a broken crown at her feet. A lion stood beside her, bowing its head, while behind her, a crumbling palace loomed in shadow. None of the restoration team had ever seen this piece in chapel records. In the lower corner, beneath a cluster of lilies and roses, was a single engraved line: "She who bore the burden, unblessed, but not unseen." Experts from the Royal School of Ecclesiastical Art verified that the glass was modern, but crafted using techniques from the 15th century, implying both reverence and intention. There was no artist signature. Multiple palace staff confirmed that neither Queen Elizabeth II nor Charles, then Prince of Wales, had ever mentioned such a commission. Yet, someone had deliberately installed a tribute to Diana in the spiritual heart of the monarchy, only to ensure it would never be seen. The woman in the glass was surrounded by 8 small stars. Astrologers and royal historians believe this represents Diana's August 31st passing, as well as her 2 sons, William and Harry. In fact, observers now believe that each star contains micro-etchings, possibly initials or symbols, meant to be deciphered only when lit at specific times of day. If true, this would mean the stained glass is not just a tribute. It is a coded message, a secret piece of public art, hidden in plain sight, pointing to truths the monarchy wanted buried deep under prayer and protocol. For royal watchers, this is more than an emotional find. It's a historical correction. The chapel, long seen as the domain of crown and clergy, is now revealed to be something else entirely. A vault of unspoken grief, quiet rebellion, and unacknowledged love. That a tribute to Diana would be hidden and not destroyed says more about the emotional fractures within the royal family than any public speech ever could. As sunlight dimmed and the window faded into darkness once more, a single truth remained. Someone loved her enough to immortalize her in silence. But just as investigators stepped back from the glowing glass to take it in, another shock awaited. Below the Diana window, a stone panel had shifted loose during cleaning. It revealed not only an abandoned vault, but a wooden box burned around its edges and sealed with wax. Its label was clear, but chilling. Do not unseal until after the rain. And what they found inside would reopen questions long thought buried. A box marked, "Do not unseal until after the rain." The wooden box, roughly 18 inches long, was discovered lodged behind the base of the Diana window at 6:45 p.m. It was charred on one side as if it had survived a fire, and sealed with 3 wax toitique stamps, one bearing the emblem of Queen Elizabeth II, another with Prince Philip's crest, and the last marked simply Yo. The inscription carved across the lid read in full, "Do not unseal until after the rain." That phrase sent an electric silence through the chapel. It suggested foresight, secrecy, and perhaps a shared family understanding about something too dangerous to confront during Elizabeth's lifetime. Special words, 18 inches, 6:45 p.m., Queen Elizabeth II, Prince Philip. When the box was finally opened under controlled conditions on May 14, 2024, archivists found a sealed packet of documents dated between 1997 and 2001. Years of immense royal upheaval. The first file contained handwritten notes and signed memoranda from senior courtiers, referencing discussions about Prince William's potential early succession following Diana's death in 1997. Phrases like, "Public sentiment outweighs tradition," and "Charles's image unsalvageable post-crisis" appeared throughout. These documents were not drafts or speculation. They were contingency plans for a scenario in which Charles might never ascend the throne. Special words, May 14, 2024, 1997, 2001, Prince William. Among the papers was a letter dated April 2000, written by an unnamed palace aide but countersigned with CR, assumed to mean Charles Rex, the king's personal signature abbreviation. The letter referenced a secret understanding between the church and the crown to delay any decision until the public wounds have closed. This phrasing has reignited speculation that Queen Elizabeth may have intervened personally to preserve stability, despite overwhelming public sympathy for Diana's sons. It was both a calculated and emotional act, a mother protecting her legacy and a monarch protecting her institution. Special words, April 2000, CR, Queen Elizabeth, Diana's sons. As historians processed the material, it became clear that the monarchy had come perilously close to rewriting its line of succession. The documents confirmed what many suspected for years. There was a real, documented moment in British royal history when the future of the crown nearly passed to William instead of Charles. The fact that this evidence was hidden under sacred ground, bound by the reign itself, shows that the royal chapel isn't just a place of prayer. It's the monarchy's most carefully guarded vault. Special words, British royal history, succession, William, Charles. But before the team could even finish examining the royal box, their attention was drawn to something much older, something carved into the chapel's foundation itself. When a loose slab near the pews was lifted for cataloging, they uncovered a massive ledger bound in animal hide, embossed with the royal crest, and a single ominous phrase burned into its cover: Rites refused. The chapel ledger of band ceremonies. The ledger, nearly 400 pages long, dates back to 1861, the year Prince Albert died and Queen Victoria entered mourning. Yet the entries continued well into the 1990s, suggesting it was still being updated during the reign of Elizabeth II. Each entry recorded not a celebration, but a rejection, a list of ceremonies, blessings, and memorials that were formally denied by royal order. The earliest pages contained notes on funerals postponed, marriages forbidden, and prayers struck from service. But the later pages held names the public would recognize instantly, most notably Princess Diana, special words, 400 pages, 1861, 1990s, Princess Diana. One striking entry dated September 1997 read, "Request for private blessing within the chapel, declined by order of the sovereign to avoid unrest." This refers to the immediate days following Diana's death, when senior clergy had reportedly requested a small internal ceremony in her honor. Another entry, from April 2005, recorded that the proposed reading of Song of Solomon at the marriage of Charles and Camilla was denied due to connotations of desire. Such granular details show how tightly controlled spiritual life was within royal circles, where even grief had to meet protocol. Special words, September 1997, April 2005, Song of Solomon, Camilla. The ledger also mentioned unofficial petitions from staff and clergy wishing to install memorial votives for both Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and Princess Margaret. Each of these two was marked refused. The handwriting shifts across decades, revealing different monarchs' personal involvement: George VI's bold script, Elizabeth's firm notes, and Charles's modern annotations. One page from 1981 included a stern margin comment: "Faith must not be emotionalized." Such a statement contrasts painfully with what was found beneath the altar: evidence of immense emotion kept in shadows. Special words, Queen Mother, Princess Margaret, 1981, George VI. Experts believe this ledger reveals a deeper truth. The chapel functioned not only as a spiritual hub, but as a control mechanism for the monarchy's moral image. The refusal to honor Diana publicly, while simultaneously concealing tributes privately, reveals the double life of the royal institution: ritual on the surface, remorse beneath it. This Book of Denial, as archivists now call it, bridges the line between faith and manipulation. In the end, it may be one of the most important royal documents of the 21st century, proving that silence, not prayer, was the monarchy's truest form of control. Special words: Book of Denial, 21st Century, Monarchy, Faith. Yet, beneath that same ledger, lay another relic the chapel never intended to reveal: an ornate stone basin coated in centuries of dust. When workers cleared the surrounding debris, the inscription around its rim became visible, and it bore a single haunting word: William. The abandoned baptismal font. The baptismal font was carved from Carrara marble and measured 3 feet across, its base sculpted into intertwined lions and lilies. Experts dated it to around 1982, a year before Prince William's christening. It was discovered sealed behind a wall panel near the north transept, where it had likely been stored since the late 1980s. The discovery baffled historians because it didn't match any known font in chapel archives. More shocking still, faint remnants of gold leaf formed the initials W.A., believed to stand for William Arthur, his middle name. The implication? This was likely the original font intended for his baptism, one that was inexplicably replaced before the ceremony. Special words: Carrara marble, 1982, Prince William, W.A. According to documents cross-referenced from July 1982, the royal family approved a last-minute change just 6 days before the christening. The official reason given was aesthetic incompatibility, but new evidence suggests the switch may have been spiritual. The font was adorned with symbols now seen as prophetic: a lion bowing to a crown split in two, and 2 birds facing opposite directions. Royal theologians now argue that this imagery symbolized division within the monarchy, a warning that Diana and Charles's union would bring both renewal and ruin. Special words: July 1982, 6 days Diana-Charles. Beneath the font's base, a small compartment contained a folded parchment marked Private Blessing, D. It appeared to be a prayer or personal note written in 1984, 2 years after William's birth, and signed simply C. The text pleaded for guidance for a boy raised by light, not shadow. Experts believe this note was written by Charles himself, perhaps out of paternal guilt or foreboding. That such a plea would be hidden rather than spoken underscores the emotional secrecy that shaped royal parenthood in the 1980s. Special words: 1984, C, and William's birth, 1980s. Now restored and placed under glass, the baptismal font stands as one of the most symbolic finds of the 21st century. A monument to what was nearly erased, it embodies both a literal and emotional cleansing that the monarchy sought but never achieved. For many, it's proof that divine faith and human fear coexisted uneasily inside the Windsor walls. To uncover this font beneath the royal chapel is to uncover the monarchy's truest baptism, not of water, but of secrecy. Special words: 21st century, Windsor walls, baptismal font, divine faith. But just as this relic was catalogued, one final detail sent a chill through everyone present. Behind the baptismal alcove, the faint hum of static caught a technician's attention, sound vibrations coming from an adjacent wall. What they found next would prove the chapel hadn't just hidden objects. It had been listening all along. Audio recordings of private royal sermons. Just behind the alcove where the baptismal font had been hidden, restoration staff detected low-frequency hums using resonance mapping gear at 9:42 a.m. the following day. When a section of the stone wall was removed, they uncovered a small soundproof chamber no larger than 4 feet wide, containing a vintage reel-to-reel recorder several metal canisters, and a label. Chapel Reflections, Restricted Playback. The tapes dated from 1960 to 2002 and bore the names of senior royals, including Charles, Elizabeth, and Philip. What was recorded inside the chapel, it turns out, was far more personal than any public service. The earliest tape, marked June 1969, featured Queen Elizabeth II, reflecting on her coronation duties in hushed, almost prayer-like tones. Her voice trembled as she spoke of carrying the weight of legacy through silences deeper than sermons. Another tape, from August 1997, was labeled simply Post-Diana. In it, Charles speaks openly about his despair, fear of public hatred, and guilt over past decisions. He describes the nation's grief as a tide I could neither outswim nor outlast. These were not rehearsed statements. They were raw monologues, never meant for public ears. Perhaps most haunting was a final recording from April 2005, made the night before Charles and Camilla's wedding. In it, Charles describes the burden of marrying joy in the shadow of history. He references Diana by name and asks, "Will the people ever forgive me?" The tone is solemn, reverent, and drenched in spiritual fear. Clergy experts believe these tapes were therapeutic confessions, intended as private absolution for royal guilt. That they were kept in the chapel, hidden under liturgical silence, shows just how entwined faith and secrecy became within Windsor tradition. But words weren't the only things hidden. As crews cleared debris from the inner vault walls, they discovered something that had no voice, no confession, but spoke volumes. Carvings older than the chapel itself, woven into its foundation like roots. What they revealed could shake the royal lineage itself. Symbols of ancient royal bloodlines. Near the southern crypt wall, workers uncovered a sequence of carvings that had been coated with plaster during renovations in the 1800s. Once exposed, the stone revealed ancient heraldic symbols, some known, some undocumented. At the center of these was an unusual crest showing a crowned falcon and a silver stag, flanking a shield split down the middle. Experts from the Royal Heraldry Society dated the etchings back to the late 1400s, suggesting they predated even the completion of St. George's Chapel itself. These weren't just decorative. They were messages left in stone. One carving contained a Latin inscription, Sanguis absconditus regit silentium. The hidden bloodline rules in silence. Beneath it, initials were etched in Tudor script, ED and CR. Theories began circulating immediately. Could ED refer to Edward IV, whose disputed legitimacy has long haunted royal historians? Could CR refer to a forgotten heir from a collateral branch? What once seemed like whispers in historical margins suddenly had stone evidence behind it. Further analysis revealed that one crest matched a family in northern France, exiled during the War of the Roses, believed to be tied to the York line. If this link is proven, it could lend weight to claims that an alternative royal heir may have existed, one erased through centuries of silence. This isn't just speculation now. The carvings, dating back over 500 years, are real, and they're inside the royal chapel's sacred heart. And as news of the ancient bloodline spread, new questions began to surface about what else might have been erased. One final door, sealed with rusted iron, remained unopened near the altar wall. Behind it was the chapel's most mysterious find yet. A tomb of images, a vault of memories never meant to be captured. Photos that were never meant to be seen. Inside a narrow corridor behind the hidden chamber, a steel strongbox was discovered beneath layers of stone dust and cobwebs. The box, once used for storing communion vessels in the 1920s, had been repurposed, now containing dozens of Polaroids, negatives, and undeveloped rolls of film dating from the 1970s to the early 2000s. What made these photos chilling wasn't just who they featured, but how they were taken. Many were candid, unguarded, and some appeared to be taken without consent. Several images showed Princess Diana, alone in chapel spaces, sometimes kneeling, sometimes simply walking, always unaware of the camera. Others showed young William and Harry, standing by windows or in gardens during private moments. There were even photos of Camilla, labeled only by date, some from long before her public royal appearances. One series was marked Observation Window, 1992, suggesting a hidden camera location within the chapel structure itself. Now in custody of the Royal Historical Integrity Board, the contents are under investigation. But the leak has already begun. If even a fraction of the imagery goes public, it could reignite fury around Diana's treatment, not just by the press, but within the institution itself. These images weren't forgotten. They were hidden. Someone in the palace feared what they revealed, that behind every royal procession was a woman breaking slowly in silence. And with the vaults opened, the scrolls unsealed, and the silence broken, the question is no longer what was found, but what happens now. The palace's sudden response and public uproar. Within 12 hours of the final discovery, Buckingham Palace issued a formal statement dismissing the chapel revelations as out-of-context historical artifacts. The release was cold, clinical, and notably void of mention of Princess Diana, the confession scroll, or the ancient bloodline symbols. Yet behind palace gates, panic had already set in. Private meetings were held between senior advisors, Charles and William. By 8 a.m. the next morning, a leak from a palace aide revealed one chilling quote from King Charles. It was never supposed to come to light. Public reaction has been swift and visceral. Hashtags like Diana was right, Chapelgate, and Who Hid the Cross began trending within hours. Memorials have sprung up outside St. George's Chapel, with mourners leaving white lilies, photographs, and handwritten notes that say things like, "We see her now." Petitions are circulating, demanding full transparency and access to all materials found in the vaults. Meanwhile, William and Catherine have remained silent, though palace insiders claim William was visibly shaken after reviewing the chapel photos. Royal historians are now calling for independent archival review of all hidden royal materials dating back to the 20th century. Some members of Parliament are even hinting that these discoveries could affect public funding of the monarchy if trust is not restored. For a royal institution already battered by years of scandal, this may be the deepest blow yet, because this one was internal. The monarchy has always controlled the story. This time, the story came back to control them. What was found in the royal chapel was not just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, and deeply political. A memorial cross for a woman silenced, a confession from a king discarded, a child's lost baptismal font, a ledger of forbidden grief, and images of suffering behind stained glass. The chapel was meant to be a house of God, but it became a temple of secrets. Now the world has seen inside, and it will never be the same. The royal chapel was built for prayer, but what it concealed were whispers of grief, guilt, and power long buried. From Diana's hidden tribute to ancient bloodline carvings, the discoveries don't just challenge tradition, they demand truth. As the palace scrambles to contain the fallout, one thing is clear: The silence is broken, and the world is listening. What else lies hidden behind royal walls? Because if this is what they found, imagine what's still locked away.